I am super excited about this podcast episode that I'm about to release. It is with Brandon Monson. He let me interview him a couple of weeks ago, and I'm releasing it before my other podcast episodes because we talk about things happening right now, elections specifically, and we talk about progressive candidates in Seattle, as well as Zohran Mamdani, who I know people are super excited about in New York City. I just want to tell you a little bit about Brandon. He's a really interesting guy who is hard to sum up in just a few sentences. He's accomplished many things, which is remarkable, especially considering the hardships he has faced. His background includes nearly 3 years at FEMA, where he played a critical role coordinating the federal response to Hurricane Helene in Tennessee, as well as the fires in LA in 2025. He most recently worked for the City of Kirkland and is now using his time to help local progressive candidates like Katie Wilson and Girmay Zahilay win their elections. Let's get into it. But first, I want to give you a few highlights to look forward to in this interview. We talked about privilege and what that means, what power for good can do, doing things for others that makes you feel alive, the Democratic Party power brokering, keeping kids safe at school, the benefits of talking to people who have different political beliefs, the hopelessness of the moment, why working class people should unite, my confession listening to a controversial podcaster. Who could that be? Our suggestion for the Democratic Party, why you should just do the good thing. My hot take for the subway guy, why life expectancy should be used to inform policy, why poverty and its effects should be scarier than losing millionaires and billionaires from our cities, why homeless people need a safe place to hang out. Shout outs to Seattle candidates who are helping the future to look bright right now, and the music Brandon is listening to right now. I hope that you will listen to this podcast and also tell me if you liked it, what you didn't like about it, and we'll tune in for future podcasts. I'm super excited and I hope you enjoy it. My name is Tara. I am, my Instagram and social media handle is From Another Mother. I have this podcast. Today we have Brandon Monson with us, and the podcast is talking to people who are living their lives from a place of investment in goodness and investment in seeing the world be a better place, whether it's locally or globally or both. And so I met Brandon recently. He spoke at, I'm a Rotary member, proud Rotary member, thanks to my dad. And he spoke at our Rotary, and I thought he was a really interesting guy. I thought I really resonated with a lot of the things he cares about and wanted to have him here today and talk a little bit about his work experience, life experience, where he is right now, what he sees for the future, and a couple of other fun questions. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, super stoked to be here, and thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I grew up in Portland, Oregon. I lived there for 23 years, and while I was there, I grew up in a poor working class family. My mom was a bartender. She worked at a tanning salon, just, really run of the mill working class jobs. She had quite a few health issues as I got older, and then my dad was a truck driver and a landscaper, and so that really left me as an only child kind of figuring everything out for myself. We didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have any really rich friends. I was never really around anyone that had a lot going on in their life. And so that led me to kind of get in a lot of trouble. I got kicked out of high school, and then just kind of left my home at 17 and worked some odd jobs in a factory, moving boxes around and delivering pizzas and all that kind of stuff, and ended up actually being homeless when I was 21, 22. I was trying to play semi-professional football, and I couldn't afford gas to even get to the practices, and so I had to give up that dream. And I was living in my car and sleeping on friends' couches.
Where were your folks at that time?
They were still living in their home, the house that they were renting. But their being around them was not conducive to a good lifestyle for me.
I see.
They were involved with a lot of drugs, and a lot of people that they hung out with were drug addicts. They got robbed a lot. They burnt down the house that we lived in.
Oh my gosh.
So
you wanted to take a different path. That was pretty clear.
Yeah, I definitely knew. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I definitely did know that I didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And so getting out of that situation, you know, it was rough. Like, being homeless is not fun for anyone, I don't think. But it led me to have to navigate the world myself. And so I ended up getting Pell Grants, student loans, and used that to go to school. Bounced around to a couple different community colleges because, you know, I didn't have the skills to be successful in school at first. And then, you know, after meeting a couple of good mentors and professors that helped give me the tools I needed to be successful, I was able to finally make inroads with school and moved to Las Vegas and went to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, got my undergrad in political science, got my master's in public policy, and from there I went to work on, I worked for then Congresswoman Jackie Rosen. She's now a U.S. Senator for Nevada. Kind of made a name for myself there, went on to work for a county commissioner down there as his district director, where we worked on some really great projects together, and I really got a sense of what I wanted to do with my life in that job. I started to see the impact that policy could have, and I started to see how many lives could be affected if we are working for people with power, or if we are a person with power ourselves and we're willing to wield it. And so working there, I was able to pass an ordinance banning source of income discrimination in housing.
Oh, wow.
Just making sure that everyone has access to, you know, rent a home or an apartment regardless of what their income is. And so I felt that was really important, and we got that passed. I also spearheaded our vaccine outreach there to the homeless population during COVID. So I was able to partner with local colleges and local nonprofits to basically set up these different vaccine outreach opportunities for the homeless population.
Like mobile vaccine, basically?
Yeah, so what we would do is we worked with like Catholic Charities, and a local school would come and bring all their nurses, and we would do, and then we partnered with a grocery store, and they gave us gift cards. So if you got vaccinated, you got a gift card. And then we did outreach in the homeless community and actually went like tent to tent and handed out flyers to let them know, hey, next week we're going to be over here at such and such. We'll be giving away food and gift cards, and we'll be getting everyone vaccinated. And so that was like a really great, you know, just seeing what we can do. Again, like that, I really got my first taste of power for good. And so going from there, went to a nonprofit, the largest food distribution nonprofit in Nevada, and was their director of outreach, and basically helped to get them connected to more of the political movers and shakers. And then I also managed our monthly pop-up program, which fed somewhere between 10 and 13,000 people every month. It was great being there to see the ins and outs of how nonprofits are so scrappy and so lean. But I also got to see how hard people push themselves in nonprofits and how underpaid they are.
Oh my gosh.
And that's nothing against this particular nonprofit. I think it's every nonprofit in general, and it's the structure that we have as a society. We don't allot enough money, whether at the federal, state, county, city level, to nonprofits to be able to pay their workers a living wage. And so it's really not on the nonprofits. They're not able to pay a living wage given the structure that we currently have.
Yeah, it's not like there's like nonprofit CEOs who are like raking it in.
Yeah, at least not on the local level.
Right,
You know,
right.
I mean, sure, some of the larger ones, but even then, you know, they're doing such important work that I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that someone who runs, you know, a major national nonprofit should make a couple $100,000 a year. I mean, that's probably what they should make, right?
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah, and then so from there, then I decided to join FEMA, and that's what brought me to Seattle. And I joined FEMA as an intergovernmental specialist, and when I left, I was the congressional affairs manager. So whenever there was a disaster on the West Coast, I would go and manage that disaster response on behalf of the federal government. I would be the liaison between the congressional and intergovernmental folks in that state and the federal government. So got to...
It's a lot of relationship building.
Totally, and
like
it's...
on the spot.
Yeah, it's really like speed dating in a way, because a disaster will happen. For example, Hurricane Helene, when that happened, I represented the state of Tennessee. So I worked within the state of Tennessee for a month. And basically I showed up day after the disaster. I lived there for a month in a hotel, and it was, you know, it's on me. I have a few days and I get new staff every day. Like every day people will start to trickle in over the first couple weeks. And so I have to put together a plan very quickly. How do we reach out to all the elected officials? How do we find out who the nonprofit leaders are? How do we find out who the church leaders are? And then how do we get everybody on the same page? Great. Now that we know everybody, how do we have a town hall? What kind of information do they need? What kind of flyers can we produce? And so, and while I'm doing that, I also have to figure out where to plug staff in. And so
as you're getting to know them.
Yeah, totally. And so it's, I mean, the phrase has been used a lot over the last few years, but we're really flying, like building the plane while we're flying it is the best phrase, because we're, you know, I'm landing as soon as the wheels touch the ground of the airplane. Like I'm on the ground 12, 15 hours a day, every day for the month.
So you work well under pressure.
Yeah, I work better under pressure, quite frankly.
Yeah, I can understand that feeling.
Yeah. And so I'll briefly wrap up my history here with, I went to manage the Los Angeles wildfires. It was definitely the biggest thing I've ever done in my career, and that was back in February 2025, and then the Trump administration came in January, I think 21st, I think is the inauguration date, while I was in Los Angeles, and everything kind of changed. We started getting a bunch of memos that were coming down, and we started seeing emails from the White House alluding to the fact that FEMA was going to be involved with non-citizen migrants and more like an ICE agency, and constructing facilities and money being diverted to facilities to hold migrants. And so in March, I resigned, and then went to the City of Kirkland for a while to advise city manager over there, and spent 6 months there, and just quit that last week.
Hey, so congratulations.
I
don't know if that's what I'm sorry, congratulations.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm
new beginnings.
We've got some elections coming up. We're filming this in October. The elections happen November 4. So I'm hoping that with these elections, I've been helping on some campaigns to kind of hopefully get my next big thing out there, because I really want to be somewhere where I can make a really large impact, somewhere where I've got authority over, staff and budgeting, and much like just able to create more generational change for King County, rather than just like being the squeaky wheel within an administration. I want to be someone within an administration that's able to actually be a decision maker, and I really miss that. So looking forward to that.
Are you staying in Seattle intentionally, or okay?
Yeah, I love the Northwest. Growing up in Portland, it was so good to like have a homecoming. Coming back to Seattle has been glorious. The water everywhere, the green everywhere. I really enjoy the weather.
Hey, you know, we need you guys, the people who are like, you know, I'm really, it's only 30 days of rain later and I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
No, but if you were to share, if you're willing, what your next dream step would be, or logical step would be, whatever you want to share, what would it
be? I would say I intentionally left my job to really try and secure a job with someone who I really believe in. Girmay Zahilay is running for King County Executive here, and I think it's a time in the nation and definitely in this city where we need leaders who have lived experience. And he was a refugee, came here when he was 3 years old. He experienced homelessness. He grew up in a shelter. He knows what it means to struggle day to day. And I think someone who gets to be the second most powerful person in the state of Washington with a budget over $10 billion needs to have that lived experience. And when I heard him speak in person for the first time back in June, it like moved me in a way that I wasn't really expecting. And I just kind of knew immediately almost that this is someone I really want to be around and learn from and grow under. And so yeah, I'm really hopeful that will be the next big step for me, is to work for Grimy. Maybe by the time this comes out, that'll be true or not.
I hope so too. I hope he wins the election. I'm definitely voting for him.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's one. We've got one. Yeah, but ultimately, like I was saying, I just want to be in a position where I can create change, make decisions, and make hard decisions, because if you just want to be popular and you don't want to upset anybody, I don't think you're going to make much of an impact on the world. And I mean, whether that's Taylor Swift or Barack Obama, people who elevate to these large positions in life get there by following their values and making hard decisions that end up helping people. And I think that's not easy to do for a lot of people, but it's really easy for me to do because I'm such a values-driven person. And so I'm ready to make those decisions and then go out and make my case to communities why we did the thing that we did.
How would you identify your values? Speaking of, like, what are those values that drive you?
Yeah,
and help you make your decisions?
The main thing is this the right thing to do? Is this the right thing that needs to be done right now? And if it's the right thing, then right now is the right time to do it. I mean, ultimately that's what it boils down to. I think that the golden rule of, treat others how you want to be treated, and then blend in a little bit of equality of opportunity. I think that, myself growing up, I didn't have equal footing with someone that came from, a great 2-parent home where they made them do their homework every night and helped them apply for college and, took them to experience things or experience the world. I mean, I didn't even really get on an airplane until my mid-20s. So until I moved to Las Vegas. So I just think that giving people the benefit of the doubt, giving them an opportunity, and then always looking out for the little guy. We really need to make sure that people aren't falling through the cracks. We're catching them young. We're giving them opportunities to advance their life and their career at their own speed, meet them where they're at. So yeah, my values are all around how we can help others get to be the best version of themselves.
It sounds like your life experience has probably played into that quite a lot in terms of seeing the difference between somebody who doesn't have the opportunities and somebody who does, and how much harder it can be. There's a lot of rewards that come with the struggle, and we all know that, but that shouldn't be the baseline for a nice life. That's my, I don't know if you know this, but I have an Instagram where my like tagline is a good life for everyone, because that's kind of my value right now. That's the thing that is guiding me in terms of what I'm thinking about, who I'm voting for, what I'm talking about. It's very difficult to have a good life if you don't have any money or you don't have good health. You know, all these things that you know as well as anyone are necessary for, you know, you can still make a life, you can still live and breathe and all that stuff, but, you know, the baseline should be, I've been like looking a lot at other countries and how people are doing, and life expectancy and happiness and so on and so forth, and it's just like I have become so much more aware of the deficiencies in our system right now, seeing, you know, juxtaposing it to countries where life expectancy is high, suicide rates are low, happiness is high, and going like, for the most advanced country in the world that's rich, like, don't we owe it to each other? And unfortunately, some people think that the struggle is a prerequisite to those gifts of life, you know, in talking to people, myself, seeing like, oh, people don't want it to be easy. People want others to have to fight for it because either they did themselves or they value that as like a thing. So anyway, just wanted to share that from a personal side. I really liked what you said about power for good, because one of the things that seems almost inevitable is that in positions of power, people they change. Not always for the better, maybe they don't change that much, but I find myself being wary of power because so many times those in power haven't done right by the people, right? And so I'm curious, when you think about power for good, and in terms of your own interest in continuing to grow or be promoted, as it were, or become more quote unquote powerful, how do you see being able to kind of stay true to yourself and what you really believe and not become, I mean, this is like, you know, thinking ahead obviously a long ways, but like what are things that you do or would do or think about in order to maintain that sense of groundedness and that sense of realness that comes from that life experience that you've had or otherwise?
Yeah, I think ultimately for me, nothing moves me internally or makes me feel alive or accomplished the way doing things for others does. So having power,
it's like built into your DNA.
Yeah, like I just don't, like I genuinely, like money, at a certain point I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
Unless you just have more to give away, right? Or more to create more power to do good. And so I couldn't be less concerned about myself, but I am very concerned about the country writ large.
Yeah.
Because it does appear that as people get more power, they want to hold on to it, not maybe realizing that they've lost the thread. They've lost the reason that they wanted power in the first place. Yeah. And for them, they seem to think that, well, if I have this if I have this amount of power, that's way more important than me using, you know, all my power now and then losing it later. I've heard this argument a lot for members of Congress, because they have to do a lot of capitulating, a lot of, you know, working across the aisle. And I think that very often they're playing into a false game. You know, I think if we're getting more political here, the Republican Party is playing by a completely different set of rules than the Democratic Party. But that makes the Democratic Party do all this power brokering in a way that doesn't really leave them with much power. But they somehow have in their mind that it's very important that they stay in office to do these great things. But I just don't see a whole lot of the great things happening. And so I would love to see someone be a one-term Congress member that tried to do something important.
Yeah,
with the understanding that it takes years and years to get into leadership and to create those relationships that you can actually do something great. I totally get it. I just think
but maybe if there were more turnover, that wouldn't be so difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, we can only solve so many problems, but the Democratic Party, I think, has some real issues at the national level with elevating the right leaders. I think we're seeing that with Zohran Mamdani. He's running a really successful race in New York that no one thought was even possible.
Not to mention his marketing team, which is incredible.
I mean, A+, like AAA+. They're the greatest.
It's so good.
Yeah, I hope they all make great amounts of money and go on to do great things because they're very talented.
Yeah.
But our leadership in the Democratic Party hasn't even endorsed Zohran Mamdani, and arguably they've tried to undercut him. And I think that was a real miss on their part. Yes, maybe he's too far to the left for mainstream Democrats, whatever. I don't think most people give a shit. Like, I think most people want someone that's going to go out there with an easy platform to understand, that is a people-first platform that puts people at the very center of policymaking.
Yeah. And
then just be front-facing with the community and be an advocate and try and do something good. I just don't see the problem with endorsing that over very corrupt, mansplaining, terrible candidates. It just seemed like a very easy victory for the Democratic Party to make, and I guess that's why they missed it, because they continue to drop the ball. But
it was a little, when you think about it, like, if the goal, and this is where, if you look at Trump's rise to power, the Republican Party saw that he was doing really well, and even though they didn't like him, they were like, well, this is the guy we're going to follow because he's smashing glass ceilings and whatever. So as a lesson, whether it's, what is the point of it all? It's like, if the people, which they showed out for him, for Mamdani, are showing you that this is who they want, why are you trying to rewrite the story? And why aren't you following that momentum? What is so scary about this person? He's going to lose? Like, he's not. You know what I mean? And he's only going to lose because you're endorsing the guy, maybe because you're endorsing somebody else. Like, if they had, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, sure, some of the things he says maybe are like a little bit more fringe or whatever, but like, that is, his, one of the things that he keeps showing on his Instagram, is that he, like, is this conversation around Israel and Palestine that they keep trying to have with him. And he's like, look, I'm trying to talk about New York City. Like, what are we doing? So it is interesting. I mean, I agree with you. I think one thing that I've thought a lot about is the gun debate. And it's been 30-ish years since Columbine. No, 25 years. And, I was in high school. It was like the end of high school for me. And I'm like, 30 years later, and I can't blame just the Republicans anymore for this. And the Democrats have one idea of what it should look like, and it's restricting access to guns. I'm like, okay, well, 30 years later, you got to come up with a better plan. Like, it's no longer, like you said, centering the people.
Yeah.
This isn't about guns. It is.
Yeah.
If I could, I would outlaw guns, okay, but we can't. Like, that's where we're at. It's about the children, the innocent people who are dying. Like, what are you going to do to protect them? And what are you doing to protect them besides yell at the top of your lungs about how guns should be illegal? I thank you for standing up for that, but like, you still haven't protected our children. So that's where I'm at with it, is like, Patty Murray, Maria Cantwell, thank you for your service. It's time to go because you're not doing what needs to be done. And that, don't get me started. Obviously, I feel very passionately about this, but it is like, I do feel like this is an important conversation to have. It is scary because you're like, oh gosh, if we throw other people into the mix, what is it all going to look like? And maybe it could get worse, but we're not in a good spot. So like, why not try something different? And I think that's what you're saying too.
Yeah, and ultimately it comes down to policy. And I look at a lot of things through life through policy and how it can be implemented, and why the things are the way they are. And they haven't found a good way to message the policy, because the policy is popular. The policy that is the most popular is background checks, and pretty effective. There's still going to be obviously there are still going to be people that slip through the cracks. There's just too many cracks.
Right.
But
that's a good way of putting
if we, it's like one of those things where if you walk around downtown or wherever, somewhere where there's a lot of people, and you ask 100 people, like, hey, what do you think about, should people be able to walk into a store and, like you can buy a vinyl of an album, should you just be able to walk in, like, buy a gun? And most people are like, I mean, that seems kind of crazy. I don't think that's the best way to do it. But if you say, hey, what if we had like a couple day waiting period, and then like you just had to fill out a form, and we just did a quick background check? Cool. That sounds awesome. Like, that makes a lot of sense. I think most people realize that's a pretty rational idea.
Right.
And we, the Democratic Party, who like are supposed to stand up for people and children, have failed miserably to make that argument. And I don't know why, because it's really not a hard argument to make.
Right.
So hopefully, somebody comes along and is able to message that in a way that resonates with people that are further than just registered Democrats.
Definitely. I agree. And I think there's a lot of people who are, what I found in myself anyway, was I'm willing to think outside the box now, because the box hasn't gotten us what we need. And at this point, I don't want to send my kid to school. Maybe that's extreme, but I don't. I'm like starting to think about, okay, what am I going to do? Because like I would love for him to go to public school and have a great education and be safe and all this stuff. And I see moms posting on social media, like every day my kids leave the house and I have this little moment of like, am I going to see them again? I'm like, that is insane. That's an insane way to expect people to feel day after day, whether they're conscious of it daily or it's just an underlying anxiety or whatever. I'm like, that's not, besides the actual violence that happens and tears people apart or kills people, but also that feeling of like, is today the day looming over you when this is something we have the power to change? So yeah, I mean, I think like, I've spoken to some conservatives just over social media who are like, we should lock down schools like we do airports and jail and prison or police stations. And I'm like, that sounds horrible. But if like, is that what we need to do? Do we need to find, you know what I mean? Like, maybe to your point, it's about taking the good ideas that are already in existence and marketing them better. But also this thing of like, if it's about keeping people safe and it's about keeping children safe, and maybe we can't get exactly what we want, what is the next best thing? And so that's, I think that one is really clear for me, because I'm like, maybe I still wouldn't send my kid to school, but if it means fewer kids are gonna die, then I can get over it feeling like a prison, I guess, which is really insane to me. But also like, if the first marker of life is survival, then we can build on it, you know what I mean? But if we don't even allow that, like, it's very hard to like dream about the perfect school environment, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I just wonder, of all the ideas out there, I think, not to get too far into the weeds on one specific area, but like,
yeah.
I don't know that logistically and financially it would possibly make sense for every school to be fully locked down in a way that works, like literally the doors don't open from the outside, but like I don't even know how you would begin to like do that at certain schools, and even then, like, someone could just like pop the door open and let someone in, and then what? I mean, yeah, and I also hate the idea of a bunch of, whether it's cops or security or just a bunch of people with guns running around schools waiting for a shooter. I don't know. I really don't like the idea of,
I'm with you. I don't like it either. It's, I guess the point that I was trying to make more so was just this idea of like, if what we're doing isn't working, then we got to get creative. And I think that's kind of what you're saying too, is just with anything, like, we lost the plot somewhere along the way.
Right.
And the plot is that everyone deserves survival, number one, and number two, so that's like food, shelter, safety. And then number two, like, hopefully in a place like that touts itself as so great as this country, that people can also live a nice life without either having to constantly hustle or live, you know, in an apartment with two other families, like that you can have like a standard of living that's actually pretty good because you live in a place that has a lot of money to do that.
It's the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, exactly. So let's pivot away from gun violence. That particular topic, like all of a sudden I was like, it's so clear, like maybe the ideas that I have about how this should be done can't be done. And the politicians who are working on it aren't getting it done. And so I'm willing to just like totally start over to keep children safe. And even if I don't like what it is, because maybe that's a bad idea, but like it's been such a long time of this stalemate. And yeah, sure, some things have changed, like maybe in states or whatever, like some, like Washington, I think passed some things and whatever, but still it's just like, okay, like what did my friend, so her husband, one thing I like to do, pivoting a little bit, but is I really like to listen to people or public persons who don't agree with me, because I like to know either what's being talked about, or sometimes there's ideas in there that are useful. But in general, it gives me a sense of like the atmosphere and the climate of things. And I have a friend who, her husband is, I don't know, I guess like liberal or whatever, progressive guy. And he started going to a gun range. He's not a gun guy, but he wanted to like understand the thing, like what's going on here. And recently she was like, you know, I think that if we invited gun owners to decide how to keep, or like at least people who are more invested in gun culture, or like understand safety and understand all this stuff, like what would they say about this? Like what would they, and I was like, that was a really interesting, if anything, just like a like everyone wants to keep children safe. I think this conversation too is like, people are like, oh, they don't care about kids. I'm like, everyone cares about kids. Like you can start there. We all do, in different ways. But it was an interesting thing to me where it was like, you know, well, maybe that's not the best idea, but just in general, what would that look like in inviting the perceived enemy into the room? Because the perceived enemy is the gun owner for a lot of people, you know?
I mean, I spent 10 years as a security guard while I was in school at the nightclubs in Las Vegas. And so I was able to be around those macho Trump Republican MAGA type guys. They're all massive gun owners. They all do jujitsu. Like, I was in that with these guys. And so yeah, I had those kinds of conversations with them all the time. And I was like the token liberal of the group, of course, and that's totally fine. But I opened all of their eyes sometimes to different issues and different perspectives because, you know, they watch Fox News. They're not like super politically engaged, but enough so that they like Trump and they wanted like the more authoritarian vibes really resonate with them. And so just being around them and able to offer a different idea of how things could be done, it is really effective. But it is also kind of like putting your hand in a door and just slamming it over and over. Like it's painful because it's really hard sometimes to try and fathom how someone got to such a different point on an issue than how you got to it.
Yeah.
You know, like how did we get to, you know, X over here and I'm way over here? It's really hard to like figure that out.
It breaks your heart a little bit. Yeah.
It sure does.
Let's move on to a question that's a little bit random, but which public figures, political or otherwise, are you most inspired by right now, and why? What is inspiring you?
Yeah, I'm not particularly inspired at the moment. I'm feeling inspired at the local level. I'm feeling inspired by, you know, Congresswoman Jayapal has this kind of resist organization that she's building across the country to kind of teach people how to resist and be part of this community. And I really like that organizational networking aspect of, in a time where we don't have any power, what do we do? Screaming doesn't seem to help. So really what it boils down to is, what can we do? And I think what we can do is organize. And so people that are organizing, people like AOC that are putting out good messaging, I think AOC is one of those people that's able to articulate all this crazy madness that's going on at the federal level and how it applies to the local level and how it applies to your life. And so I think she's a great messenger of that. It's kind of making me seem pretty radical left with some of the people that I'm talking about, but I don't think anyone who's a moderate Democrat right now is doing a great job of messaging or actually doing anything, quite frankly. Well, currently, as we're filming this, Jeff Merkley is on the floor of the Senate giving a speech. He's been there for, I think we're going on like 15, 16 hours right now, and like that's one way of doing that non-violent protest that I think is very, very effective and definitely what we should be doing right now. I just don't know, as far as feeling inspired, I don't know what that looks like for me or others to feel inspired. Because when you go talk to people in the community, and if you ask them like, who are you feeling inspired by right now, or what are you feeling inspired by right now, the vibes are bad. Like, people are not feeling inspired.
Really?
They're feeling hopeless. They're feeling like we're not even 25% of the way into Trump's his second term here, and hopefully last. And we it feels like pure chaos, and like we are helpless. There's not a lot we can do. ICE is like detaining U.S. citizens. It's crazy, but like, where's the hope in all that? Where's like the Obama hope? I don't know. I'm not really finding a lot of it in our institutionalized large figurehead leaders. Again, that's why I'm trying to look more locally, because if you look locally, you'll find people that are doing great work. I just think we're having a bit of a messaging issue at the federal level.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. It's hard to think about so many people, probably mostly on the left, just little conversations I've had here and there. People on the right seem pretty happy. They're like, we're doing great. I'm like, are you though?
But everything's super expensive.
Yeah, no, I know.
People on the right are still feeling that, regardless of your politics. Like,
yeah, but there's a certain, we all do this. There's a certain, ignorance that we will accept when the bigger picture that we've, Trump's there doing certain things they really love. So some things are like, okay, we can wait for that,
Yeah, and whether left or right, ultimately it's people. We're all people, and unless you're very wealthy right now, like, you're feeling the hurt of the tariffs, and you're feeling the hurt of terrible legislation that's being passed by the Trump administration, and that's on the left and the right. And so if you are a working class person, you're paying more for everything right now, and those costs do not care about your political affiliation. And also, I would love to like expand people's thoughts around what is working class, because if you're making like less than $300,000 a year, you are working class.
Well, in Seattle especially.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so when you think about, there's a lot of talk around the billionaire class, or us versus them, or working class or poor. It's like everyone versus the top 1%. That's more so how we need to be thinking about it. And if you start to get into those terms rather than left versus right, then that's how you can start to solve some of those problems, because so much of the legislation and so much of what's happening comes down to that 99% versus the 1%. The 1%, once they get that much money, that much power, that much wealth, they want to hold on to it and they want to spend it on their terms. They don't want to pay more in taxes to support the other 99%.
Right.
And so I would love to see the Democratic Party move away from left versus right, us versus them, to more of an top versus bottom, us versus them. And I think that'd be a much more effective messaging because people can resonate with that. And I think that'd be a better way to build coalitions outside of registered Democrats versus registered Republicans.
Yeah. You know, I'm hopeful that actually this will happen because one of the people that I listen to who I don't agree with, brace yourself, is Candace Owens. And I'm like, don't listen to her a lot, but I like to hear what she's talking about, especially after this Jeffrey Epstein stuff. I was listening to Hassan Piker, who's, you know, pretty far left, and then she's pretty far right. And it was interesting. They were saying some of the same things as with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, whatever. But one thing that she did say after Charlie Kirk's assassination that I thought was very interesting, and she comes from, I think her husband is like a billionaire, like inherited billions from his family, but she kind of talks like she's like, buy my t-shirt, support our cause, whatever. She's a bit strange, but she has a huge platform and she has a lot of influence and people respect her and listen to her. And she was saying explicitly, it's no longer left versus right. It is people with money and the rest of us. And I was like, huh, okay. What does that mean? I don't know. But for me, it was sort of like something in the atmosphere, something, you know, whether or not she's a grifter, which I know a lot of people think she is. I'm open to, you know, I don't know what she is. But it was like, here's this person with a huge platform. A lot of people look up to her saying something that is a very powerful sentiment that can be open up these people's minds to ideas from other places to accept, you know, that concept of opening up from left versus right to powerful and rich versus everyone else. And I was like, maybe whether or not she as a person is somebody to like regard, that idea that possibly is going to be sitting with people might open something up in a bigger way for more people to be considering that and looking at, well, what does that mean? What does she mean when she says that? Why is she saying that? And stop closing the doors on left versus right ideas. It was just interesting to me. And I just thought, like, does that indicate something else as a whole going on? And like culturally, socially, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the two most successful presidential campaigns in the last 10 years, be Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. I think, you know, Bernie Sanders created this insane movement and brought in so many people from outside of the mainstream Democratic cause.
Were you like keeping track of that while it was happening? Like,
did you I worked on the campaign.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it was like, it felt like you were part of something different. And that was, you know, it was all about the oligarchs and top versus bottom, 99%, 1%. And to some degree, Trump was about, I'm already rich, I don't need more money, I'm going to go after the people with money. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is also built around racism and sexism and a lot of other terrible things. But part of Donald Trump was built around, I'm so rich, I don't need to capitulate to rich people, I'll take their money and do good. I think there's a lot of people that feel like, well, if the politicians, you know, if they're going to go after those people with all the money and help make my life easier, then I'm all for it.
Right.
Especially people that aren't closely tracking politics. You know, I mean, again, going back to Mamdani, I mean, they're interviewing people all over New York and like, everyone's just like, oh, well, he's going to like take the rich people's money and give us free transit. And that's awesome. And he's going to lower the price of groceries. And like, whether or not he can or will do these things genuinely doesn't matter. What matters is like, everyone knows his platform and it's easy to follow and it's us versus the top 1%.
Right.
And it's so effective. And I don't understand why the Democrats can't seem to figure that out. It's like very easy.
We're going to send this podcast to Chuck Schumer and Pelosi and I don't know who else.
Oh, bless their
Actually,
hearts.
I know a guy. No, I don't. Yeah, bless their hearts. I mean, the thing, yeah, I think having long-term wise politicians is like a part of the healthy ecosystem of a party. Like I worked in retirement living for a long time. I would never, and as a result of that, interacted with a lot of really brilliant people who were very old. And it was like, oh, well, this isn't about age. This is about, some people it's about age-related illnesses or whatever, but a lot of it also is like a stagnation or stubbornness or that thing that happens when you assume that because of your longevity, you do know everything, a lack of openness. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I'll be interested to see like whether it's with the midterms or with the next election, like what kind of turnover is happening, like what is the mood of, what is the culture of the people, because I do think a lot more people are less afraid to vote their values instead of vote party. Like I feel like people are turned off, at least maybe more Democrat, I don't know about Republican. People are pretty turned off, I think, from party line voting, having seen that it hasn't worked that well. So it sounds like, you know, with the local stuff, you're kind of getting that energy from the people or from the people you're working with and so on. And so that's what you've been able to do. If you were to speak to somebody then, you know, who needs to hear a little bit of like something to look forward to. So like if somebody is feeling like I'm feeling despair or I'm getting close, like what can if I don't have, let's say I have a full-time job and a family and I can't necessarily go out and do stuff and do the same community work, maybe I can. For anybody, whether they have time or not, what would you say to them? How would you help them look forward?
Well, it's the same thing that I would say, you know, if you're experiencing just like general depression, is to move, to get into motion. So start taking the steps to be the change that you want to see. And so if you are looking outward for hope and you're not seeing it, look inward and then look backward to history. So, you know, go read about anything in the 60s, civil rights, like go read about John Lewis, go read about JFK, go read about all these much more turbulent times in American history, and then try and figure out, okay, here's what they did to get out of that. What can we do now? And if that's like way too abstract for you, then just like get out in the community and talk to people. So find a food bank close to you and sign up to volunteer once a month. And you'll get to meet community members from maybe a different class of society than you. And you'll also get to do something that maybe makes you feel hopeful, like you are part of the good that's happening in the world. And, you know, back to what I said earlier about my values and like the right thing right now, and like the right thing is to go volunteer. I mean, there's no bad time to go volunteer. No one's gonna think you're a bad person for volunteering, right?
Yeah.
So like, just go do the good things. You know it's a good thing to do. Why not just do it? And when you do good things, you're gonna feel better. I also carry this over into like everyday life of like, when I'm at the grocery store, I'm talking to the store clerk, like, hey, how's your day going? Gosh, how long have you worked here? Oh, that's really cool. Like, just like, you know, little interactions throughout the day to try and boost other people's moods. Holding the door for people, letting people over in traffic, like literally just doing good things throughout the day that you would, like if someone said, hey, what are things that good people do? Just like do the things that you would answer.
I like that. I feel like from this conversation, at least, there's like 3 or 4 political slogans that you can use in your future. Power for good, do good things. I mean, I guess that one has probably been used already, but I like that. I like that, especially the one with the driving, because I feel like I get so tense driving and I get so frustrated and I'm like, oh yeah, I just need to like be the nice guy, and then it'll help ease some of that, like if other people are being wonky or whatever.
Also, you could like time it. So if you have to drive somewhere periodically at the same time of day, like do like your racing version. Like I'm gonna cut everyone off. I'm gonna be there first. And then like do it the slow way where you just like are listening to a podcast, zoning out, just driving the car, and you get there when you get there. And like I can almost guarantee it's gonna be like almost the exact same.
Yeah.
But your blood pressure is gonna be way lower and you're gonna be in a much better mood.
I told my husband, because I drive, when I go to Rotary, I drive across I-90. In the mornings, like it is
painful.
I leave my house at 6 or 6:30, so it's early, but it is scary because people are like, I don't know who is out and why they're like, what are they doing? But I'm like, can you just chill?
Yeah.
And because I get anxious if somebody's like, shoot, whatever. But I was like, you know what? We really need like two highways. We need this fast guy highway and the slow guy highway, because the rest of us who are going slow are like, who cares? Like, I don't care. We're going to get there eventually. And these guys up here, the fast guys, they're going to really enjoy being able to not be bothered by the rest of us slow pokes,
Totally. There's an Instagram of this guy, it's like Subway hot takes.
Oh, yeah. I know that guy.
And he always asks, like, that would be your hot take. Like,
exactly.
What's your hot take?
That's a
there
good
needs to be
idea.
a fast highway and a slow highway.
I'm going to tag him in this and be like, please include me. Come to Seattle, do light rail hot takes.
Oh my god, that'd be great.
Yeah.
You brought up earlier about life expectancy. And there's a new study out talking about life expectancy and income. And as I think we could all predict, the more money you have, the longer you live. And so I really think, going back to values, that we have a moral obligation to ensure that people have a certain quality of life in this country. And I don't know that we're meeting that mark given these new findings in the research. So when we're thinking about creating policy, I think that those types of research findings need to be taken into account in, okay, if we create this policy, who benefits, who loses, does it move the needle for life expectancy for people making 60% of the area media income? You know what I mean? Like, how are we making the lives of those who need us to make policy for them better? Rather than, how can we not upset big businesses? Or how can we not upset people that donate to our campaign? Like, I get that it's really tough, and I'm sure it's really hard to have all these different competing interests when you have that kind of power.
Yeah.
But I would love to see us move the needle a little bit to the other direction of the people rather than the profit or the large donors or the mega businesses. I just think we could move it a couple inches and nobody over here is going to be going down to the food bank, whereas people over here will maybe be able to like afford their own groceries. Like, I think the needles just needs to move a little bit.
Yeah, it's like we need to fear the, as you put it, 99% losing what they have over the 1% not donating or not giving their money to whatever they, like, we don't need to fear what the billionaires are doing with their money. We need to fear how the American people are not able to survive.
Yeah, and to like keep this hyper local, there's a mayoral race happening right now where our incumbent, Mayor Harrell, is really concerned and has brought up on multiple occasions that if we move our taxes too far in one direction, that these large businesses may leave the city. That's his fear. But I think the real fear is we should be fearing poverty. Like, if people are living in the city of Seattle, one of the richest cities in this country, in poverty, that's the fear. That is terrifying.
Yeah.
So I'm less concerned with what's happening way over here. I'm really concerned with people living in poverty, people not being able to afford to buy their kids school clothes and backpacks and take them to the doctor, and losing their health insurance and losing SNAP benefits. And I love seeing that conversation shifted from, gosh, what if Amazon, what if they close one of their million offices? Like, it sucks. Like, I don't want to lose that tax base. I really wish they wouldn't do that. And just side note, Amazon's actually done some insanely incredible things for this city. They've built an enormous amount of affordable housing at a way cheaper rate than the city of Seattle is able to build it. So props to them for that. Anyway, but I do love seeing the conversation shift to like, hey, how do we like actually help people?
Well, yeah, because knowing also that poverty leads to potentially a host of other problems too.
Right.
Whether it's mental health or drugs or whatever. I love that though. I love how you phrase that. Not fearing Amazon, but fearing the poverty of our own city. I mean, it's such a compassionate take, and I do hope. I really do hope, and it can be so convincing. Those like, oh yeah, if Amazon leaves, what then? You do end up sort of being like, maybe not me, but I can understand why people sort of go like, oh yeah, that could be really bad. But it's true. I mean, that poverty is way worse, and not just for the individual, but causes way more problems as a ripple effect, across the city. There was a, how this is sort of adjacent, but it's like Elon Musk wants to build a Mars landing or what, I don't know. He wants to like go to space and live there.
One-way ticket.
You know what? I'm like, if all of the billionaires took a one-way ticket to Mars, wouldn't that actually be really great? Like, I understand the thing of like, he shouldn't be thinking about that. He should be helping poor people. He's not going to do that. So like, let's let him build his little house up there, take all of his friends, and like the rest of us can like have a lot fewer problems. I mean, it seems like a pretty good solution.
I mean, it is kind of hilarious to think about. For someone who like thrashes billionaires all the time, I do just feel that it's important to just say that like they proportionally, I don't think they do a lot of good, like, per capita. Like they have $10 zillion and they do like this little amount of good. However, I do think it's important to acknowledge, like I said with Amazon, like they do some pretty incredible things, and they do give a lot of money back into the community. And even if we don't hear about it, Elon Musk included, like he's donated millions and millions of dollars to all sorts of like good causes. But I don't think that gets you off the hook for the bad things that you do. And I also don't think that it proportionally represents your giving. If you make $10 billion and you donate $1 million,
it's like a
good job, dude. Yeah. Like, I donate more of my paycheck than you do.
Right.
So that's kind of how I feel about taxes in the same way, right? Like we're paying 15 to 30% in taxes, and a lot of billionaires are paying quite less, and they complain because then they'd be giving up they'd be giving up more money, but they also make more money. So like it's really hard to frame that conversation.
It is really hard to frame that conversation. I hope that more people locally seeing those wins with whether it's mayors or King County executives or whatever, seeing people with values come to positions of power and either stay true to their word through their actions, however much they can get done, or just being able to keep people believing in something that isn't what we have right now would be amazing. Which brings me to my next question. What's challenging you right now? In whether it's work or life or whatever, like, do you grieving the loss of the...
I am so challenged right now. My partner is on crutches for 6 weeks. My dog just had ACL surgery.
Oh my gosh.
So that's 3 months of like rehab, and like she can't get up and down off the couch, and she was like my running partner, so that's been really difficult. So I've got a stroller, and I've been pushing her in the stroller while I run, which is significantly more difficult. But she gets to be outside, and that's really fun. My mom was just in the hospital for like a month, dealing with some stuff. And I just like quit my job, and so there's a lot. The Mariners, but that's been going on my whole life, so I've figured out how to cope with that. So yeah, with all of these negative things happening in my life that I just have no control over, when seasons like this happen, I tend to like read a lot, and run a lot, and so um, yeah, just making sure that while all these things are happening to me, I have the ability to cope, and I know personally that that is has to be intellectual and also has to like have a lot of physical stimuli. Otherwise, I can just kind of spiral into despair, and get pretty depressed and sad, especially when I don't feel like I'm making a large impact on my day to day life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are the things that are challenging me.
Yeah, that's a lot. I hope that, especially your mom and, your partner and your dog, everybody feels better. I know it's like different things to deal with, but that's a lot to, for one person to be kind of managing all of that. And so with the reading and running, is there anything else, whether it's bringing you joy or whether it's kind of like giving you life-giving right now? Maybe you talked about your work, a lot of the work you do gives you that. Is there anything else that is giving you that right now?
Yeah, I just joined the board of a local nonprofit called the Aurora Commons. Aurora Commons, yeah, they are basically an organization that started out as a living room space for those experiencing homelessness. And it was just because, if you are homeless and you look homeless and you want to go watch the ball game, there's not a space for you. You're not welcome at the bar. You're not welcome at the coffee shop. You're not welcome in most places. And so providing, a couple couches and food and coffee and hot cocoa, like it seems like the least we could possibly do as a society, but it is so impactful to give them this space to just be and to get to know each other in this safe environment. And I try and work down there every Monday, and we got to watch the game 7, Mariners game 7, which was sad, but also it was nice to be there in this, like, providing this space for so many people to watch the game and just feel like they're included in that.
Yeah.
It's honestly like heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time, getting to be a part of that and getting to see that. It's really nice. And then also I'm on a commission for the United Way, it's like this emerging leaders fund. We're basically raising money for United Way to try and make an impact in poverty in King County. So helping families facing eviction. United Way is one of the first people to get involved when families are facing an eviction. They can sign up for money from the United Way, and it's very, very effective because the United Way is such a large organization. They're able to give quite a bit of money to these families to keep them in the home that they're in, because we know that if a family is evicted, and that they're much more likely to become homeless than if we can just keep them in their home. It's going to be far less expensive to keep them in their home than it is to let them become homeless and then start to have to use a bunch of different services and then have to figure out how to get into a new place. It's just a lot easier to keep them where they're at. And it's also just, again, the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Keeping families together, keeping families in their home that they're used to. So yeah, volunteering, like I said earlier, for folks, like just getting out in the community. So I've been volunteering more. I'm working a lot on campaigns. I'm
busy guy.
Staying surprisingly busy, much to my partner's dismay, because she's got this whole list of things for me to do while I'm unemployed, and I don't seem to have much time to get to those things. So we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I'm really hopeful with Girmay's. Hopefully he'll win. And you being a part of his team, I don't know if that was what that would be, but that would be amazing. Then I can say, I know you win. And then I think I told you he came to Rotary. Girmay did. And it was really interesting because he said, I think it was Bellevue was like the only I'm going to misquote this, but it was basically like, you could tell he was coming there because it was one of the places where he didn't do as well as other places, and so he was wanting to like be seen and get his name out there, and that was a real celeb moment for me because he's one of those that I'm like, oh my gosh, Girmay, like so cool. But I, between him and between Katie Wilson, I feel like they're bringing this really good energy, and I feel like at least based on like the primaries that we have a lot to look forward to with their leadership potentially. So
I hope so. I hope on November 4th we're celebrating them and Erica Evans and Dion Foster and so many other great candidates that we've got. But I think the future looks bright, and it seems like the Seattle King County voters are edging in that direction.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're hopeful. Hopefully we are cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so last question. Thank you again for coming today. Your 3 favorite songs or musicians right now, doesn't have to be 3, you can, so fluid. I don't know if you listen to Ezra Klein, but he always does like, what 3 books are you reading right now? And I'm like, I don't read that much, so I want to know, because I'm more likely to, I like podcasts, I like reading, but I'm more likely to check out the music, and me trying to step away from Spotify, this is my way of like getting into new music through real people.
Yeah, my music tastes cover a wide spectrum.
Nice.
And so sometimes I feel like I need a bit of the past to make me feel joy.
Totally.
And so I've been listening to Outkast quite a bit, like ATLians, that's like an epic album, and that has been fabulous, much needed.
Nice.
Taylor Swift's new album, I don't know, I really enjoy it. My partner's a huge Swiftie, so I get to hear it all around the house.
Yeah.
I really love the first track, The Fate of Ophelia.
Oh yeah, that's a banger.
Right, because like everyone's dig on Taylor, that, I don't know, a bunch of haters hate away, but I think they try and say that, it's like so simple and it's not like, there's no articulation, and I'm like, her first song's literally about Shakespeare. I just like can't even get on board with the idea that she's not putting energy into like these lyrics somehow. Makes no sense. And lastly, I will say, I'm trying to remember this artist's name, sorry. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Any clues? Maybe I know them.
I don't think so. I think his name's Vic Mensa. I don't know, he's like a hip hop artist.
Okay.
And his new album, he's taking it back from streaming platforms and he's selling it himself.
Amazing.
Which I think is a really interesting concept, something that Taylor Swift kind of did by buying back her own music. I think he's kind of jumping on that train of, these platforms are using our music and our likeness, and we're getting pennies on the dollar, and it's kind of crazy. And also they don't get a say in what their music, what those streaming platforms stand for, that their music's being streamed on. And like, for example, I think Spotify is somehow cooperating or working with, or they're not turning off their ICE commercials. I guess they're running ads for ICE. And so I think that is admirable to try and take your own music off those platforms and try and sell it yourself.
It's a big sacrifice in a lot of ways, even though they're not getting paid, know? It is, it's a huge, I really admire it too, especially for somebody who's maybe a little less established, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's tough, but again, it's the right thing to do.
Definitely. Well, on that note, I have 3, I'm not a Swiftie. I feel like all of a sudden all these millennial women are like Swifties, and I'm like, I missed it. Like so my sister-in-law, she's a little bit older, and she and her daughter love Taylor Swift, they've seen her. There's all these, when the album came out, my Instagram feed was flood. I was like, what is this? Like who was I hanging out with? I think my people I typically have spent time with are artists and musicians who tend not to listen to as much pop music. So I was like, oh, maybe that's why I had never, like, I heard some of her songs, I know her songs, but that Fate of Ophelia, it kept coming up, and I'm like singing it, you know, that's a good one. Anyway, so thank you for coming today, talking to me about Taylor Swift and all of the good things. And I hope that for people watching or listening, that you take from this conversation, besides just getting to know Brandon, some of these things, using power for good. I loved what you said about looking inward for inspiration, which is such an interesting idea to me. And then looking at history, if you can't see it around you, I think that's such a hopeful message. And I just really thank you for your time. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. And let's see. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for. I'm newish to interviewing. I've done it before, but I also hosted karaoke for a long time, which is like adjacent to to interviewing.
Well, I'm glad we're podcasting and not karaoke.
Yeah. I do have a mic.